Do you think you know the world of plants? Wait until you enter the garden of life. Here, leaves have thoughts, the spirits of bark listen, and sometimes what the plants whisper becomes real. This is the story of a young apprentice healer and a stranger who knocks at the door on a night he shouldn't have. Make yourself comfortable. The story is about to begin. The Garden of Two Faces. Once upon a time, on the gentle edge of a town in Katiopa, there was a garden, the kind you only find once in a lifetime. You wouldn't see it just by walking by. The vines had wrapped themselves around the walls, like guardians keeping a secret. But those who knew, knew. They called it the Garden of Life, a green refuge shaped by the seasons, filled with leaves of every kind, rare blossoms and wise old trees. The wind whispered differently there. Birds sang brighter songs, and the plants, well, they had thoughts of their own. That's what people said. It was the domain of Amatina, a healer, keeper of ancient knowledge, passed down from mother to daughter, generation after generation. She didn't speak much, but her hands knew what to do. She read the body like a map, and the plants answered her in silence. At her side grew Nyasha, her daughter, thin as a millet stem, quick as a stream running over stone. Nyasha was learning. She knew the names, the movements, the infusions. But sometimes she forgot to be quiet. She laughed when she was meant to listen. She dragged her feet when she needed precision. Amatina would sigh, then begin again. She knew that knowledge grows like a seed, slowly, silently, often unseen. Every week, mother and daughter would walk to the market. They carried in woven baskets dried leaves, washed roots, prepared oils. They walked together, unhurried, speaking little, letting the scents rise in the morning light. They delivered their offerings to an old herbalist in the ancient quarter, a man with tired eyes, but a heart still young. It was a clear morning, scented with lemon leaves and tropical rain. The market was slowly waking up, like a peaceful, breathing belly. Low voices of the traders, the clinking of old metal scales, the mingled scents of spices and black soap. Nyasha was carrying the basket. She walked 2 steps behind her mother, focused, or so it seemed. But truth be told, her eyes were wandering. They slid over the stalls, the bursts of colorful fabrics, the children weaving between the legs of passing customers. When they stepped into the herbalist's shop, someone else was already there. A young man, well-dressed but tired. His eyes were bright, almost too bright, like he was searching for something without knowing what it was. He spoke softly to the old apothecary, asking, explaining, looking for a mixture, a cure. Nyasha noticed him, not on purpose, and he noticed her. First a quick glance, then a longer one. Something in the air shifted, just a little. When she placed her basket on the table, he made a movement, a bit too sudden, or maybe too slow. She couldn't quite remember. She said something. He answered, a little sharp. It wasn't a fight. No, more like a spark. A small sting that doesn't wound, but leaves a trace. Then, They both pretended not to see each other anymore. On the way home, Amatina didn't speak for a long time. Then, in a voice so soft it almost disappeared, she said, "Some people carry deep wounds from faraway places. Don't let them shake you, my daughter. Protect your garden." Nyasha didn't answer, but that sentence she never forgot. The day had folded in on itself. The sky that evening was pale pink, washed by warm winds. Nyasha had put away the tools, watered the young shoots, closed the jars of half-used potions. Amatina had left early that morning, called to a neighboring village to tend to a patient. Before leaving, as always, she gave clear instructions. "Take care of the garden, but don't open the door to anyone. The spirits of the plants, when they sense the apprentice, they begin to whisper, and sometimes what they whisper becomes real." Nyasha had nodded, with that mix of boredom and tender pride only young hearts carry. Night came quickly, and in that peaceful silence someone knocked at the door. 3 knocks, firm, calm, then a breath, then a softer knock. She opened it, just a little, just enough to see, and her heart jumped. Standing there in the twilight was him, the young man from the herbalist's shop, his gaze still clear, his figure still elegant, but paler now, his lips dry, a sheen of sweat on his forehead, but his eyes burned, urgent, intense, as if he recognized her too. They stood there, frozen, as if this meeting wasn't supposed to happen. Not here, not now. In a low, slightly timid but fast voice, the young man spoke. "Someone told me about this place, about the healer, Amatina. They said, if nothing else worked, I should come here. It took me a while to find it, but here I am. I need to see her." Nyasha, startled, frowned. "She's not here. She'll return tomorrow, maybe the day after. Come back later." But he didn't move. He leaned gently against the wall, as if he might collapse. "I think tomorrow will be too late for me. I've seen all kinds of healers. No one knows what's wrong with me. I don't have the strength to fight anymore. So here I am, at your door, my last hope." He looked at her with the eyes of someone who had nothing left to lose. "And you know something. I saw it in your eyes, back at the market. The look of someone who knows." Nyasha hesitated. She straightened her back, trying to seem firm. "I'm just an apprentice. I can't." He smiled, weakly, a smile of exhaustion. "An apprentice in this garden is worth more than 10 doctors anywhere else." He didn't say anything else, and it was that silence that made Nyasha give in. She opened the door, just enough for him to step inside, and in the heart of the garden, the plant spirits opened one eye. Night had fallen over the garden of life, wrapping the plants in a warm breath of stillness. Shadows danced gently, leaves whispered among themselves, as if trading secrets only they could understand. Wembe, that was the young man's name, sat quietly on a small woven stool. His face was hollowed by fatigue. His shoulders drooped, but his eyes still held that strange light, the kind that searches, waits, calls. Nyasha had hesitated for a long time, but now that he was here, she couldn't send him away. She told herself, "It's not really disobeying. I'm just trying to help, just enough to ease him. Mama would have done the same. I can try too." So she prepared an infusion. Not exactly the one Mama Amatina would have made, but close. A memory-guided version, almost complete. She picked the freshest leaves, the safest roots, let them simmer gently, and added a drop of nimbari sap, just a touch, like she'd seen before. Wembe watched silently. He coughed a little, his fingers tight on his knees. When she handed him the cup, he took it without a word. He drank slowly, in small sips. At first he seemed better. His breath calmed. His eyelids grew heavy. Nyasha let out a soft breath. A flicker of pride warmed her chest, trembling, but proud. But then, something changed. Wembe sat upright, took a sharp breath, then groaned. His body began to tighten, as if something inside was twisting. His skin paled, his eyes lost focus. "What is this?" he whispered. He looked like he was slipping, out of himself, the world around him fading, his body too heavy to hold. Panic surged in Nyasha. She checked the leaves, the dosage. Everything seemed right, but it wasn't enough, or not understood, or maybe not the right time. Guilt flooded her, and so she did what her heart told her to do. She ran to the sacred baobab, placed both hands on its bark, closed her eyes, and whispered the entry ritual. She had never done it alone, but now she had to. She focused on her breath, on the earth beneath her feet, on the memory of every gesture. And finally, she spoke her mother's name into the silence. And then she felt the shift. The air grew dense, as if it were turning into matter. Sound shifted or disappeared. Then something opened. First, there was silence. Not an empty silence, a full one. A silence that pulsed, that watched, that breathed. Then the light, but not sunlight. A soft, diffuse glow, golden like honey fallen from a dream no one had ever told. When Nyasha opened her eyes, the ground beneath her feet was no longer the same. She was somewhere else. Wembe was there, right behind her, breathless, strangely present, as if drawn in by the same breath. She didn't understand how. They were no longer in the garden of life, and she was no longer alone, not in the usual sense. Something was aware of them. Beneath her feet, the ground was soft, warm like velvet, almost alive. Not a plant, a skin, a memory, a green one. Around them, the vegetation wasn't just plants. Some floated, rootless. Others, anchored in the air itself, turned translucent leaves toward them, like eyes without pupils. The colors. Yes, there was green, but also mist blue, mineral pink, silver and amber shadows that shimmered. And the sounds, a gentle hum, constant, almost inaudible, as if the place was singing to itself, without audience, without words. Nyasha inhaled. The air entered her like nectar. Her breath was short, but clear. She rose slowly. Wembe was standing too, a few steps behind, mouth slightly open, eyes wide. "What? Where are we?" he whispered. But his voice felt out of place, like a wrong note in a sacred melody. Nyasha didn't answer right away. What she saw, this wasn't the plant world her mother had shown her. She knew dream forests, memory flowers, rooted spirits. But this was different, vaster, shifting, alive but differently, untamable. She searched for something familiar, a known leaf, a scent she recognized. Nothing. This world wasn't speaking in the old ways. It was speaking to something else in her. "I don't know," she said at last. But deep down she did know. This world didn't respond to knowledge. It answered to intention, to the fear of failing, to the trembling sincerity of trying. She had called it. But it wasn't the world. It was a world, one that appears when intention overflows what we think we know. Wembe stepped toward a bush with translucent leaves. He reached out. The plant shivered, then slowly opened, in silence, revealing a pulsing core, almost animal, a deep, glowing red. He stepped back slightly, then breathed in deeper. Color returned to his face. "I feel better," he whispered, surprised. Nyasha stared. Yes, he looked better, but she knew this wasn't healing. It was the place holding him, like a living blanket, like a kind illusion. A world that heals, but a world that keeps. And deep in her belly, a chill rose. Because if this world had answered her call, it might in return ask for something too. Their first steps were hesitant. The moss beneath their feet rippled with each movement, adjusting to their weight, their rhythm, as if it already knew where they were going. No sound, no resistance. Even the ground itself seemed willing. Around them the plants formed living arches, floating vines, clearings bathed in suspended light. There was no path, and yet each step felt right. They walked, for a long time, or maybe just a moment. Here, time had no edge. Wembe said nothing. The lines of exhaustion had softened on his face. He moved like someone drifting through a dream he didn't want to leave. Now and then, he brushed against a leaf, and it shivered gently, as if responding. Nyasha walked beside him, not afraid, not at peace. Somewhere in between, a sharp awareness, a full body listening. She remembered what Mama Amatina had once told her. Here, nothing is given to those who seek to understand. Everything is revealed to those who allow themselves to be seen. They stopped by a strange stream, but the water didn't flow. It rose in a slow, spiraling dance above the stones. From a massive tree, A vine descended silently. It hovered in front of them, vibrating softly, like a question. Nyasha bowed slightly, hands open. She spoke as one would in the old rites. I am Nyasha, daughter of Amatina, guardian of the Garden of Life. I come to learn and to mend. The vine dipped gracefully in silent acknowledgement, but it didn't speak. Wembe watched, intrigued. You talk to plants like that? He whispered. Nyasha shrugged, a half smile on her lips. I do what I've seen done, but here, nothing is the same. They sat together on a wide, soft trunk, a wooden cushion shaped by time. And again, silence returned. Not empty, but connective. A silence that belonged to both of them. Then Wembe spoke, more to himself than to her. I never had time to stop. Even sick, I kept running. I ran from pain. I ran from fear. Here, I don't think I need to hide anymore. His voice was soft, bare. Nyasha looked at him, surprised by his tone, and replied almost without thinking, I have always wanted to prove I could do things right, but I think I haven't yet learned how to truly listen. The silence that followed was different, not awkward, not heavy, just shared. And little by little, the thought of leaving began to fade. The real world, blurred, like a memory slipping away. Why leave a place that heals? Why go back to mistakes, to questions, to everything uncertain? Nyasha rested her head against the trunk. Wembe closed his eyes. They let themselves drift. Just a little. Just for now. But elsewhere, deeper in the plant world, a single leaf trembled, sharper than before. A high-pitched pulse shimmered through the canopy. A whisper ran from branch to branch, quick as a spark. These two are forgetting. Because this world, as gentle as it was alive. And like all living things, it chose its guests. The world of plants was gentle, too gentle. Nyasha realized it one morning, watching Wembe sleep. He was resting against a hollow tree trunk, his face peaceful, his breath slow and steady, like someone who no longer felt pain. His hands, once trembling, were still, his eyelids soft, his body calm. Here, he was well, almost too well. But Nyasha, she had begun to feel something shift inside her. Not discomfort, but distance, a fading. She knew that feeling. Mama Amatina had once whispered it to her like a quiet secret. When you feel good but you're no longer moving forward, it's because you've stayed too long. Nyasha knew how to leave this world. She knew the breath, the gesture, the ritual, but she hadn't come alone. And Wembe, he seemed to have forgotten the way back, forgotten the path, forgotten the world of men. Days passed, or what this place called days. Wembe wandered beneath leafy arches, along spirals of water, past singing stems. He spoke little. He no longer mentioned his illness. He no longer spoke of the outside. One misty morning, As they walked by a tree with twisted roots and a trunk as wide as a house, the tree moved, just slightly. Then a voice rose from deep inside its bark. Ancient, not harsh, not soft, just present. "You there, the man," said the tree. "Why do you think you were allowed here?" Wembe stopped. He took his time before answering. "I don't know," he murmured. "I came to be healed." The tree was silent, a deep, listening silence. Then it spoke again. "Many have heard of this place. Few believe in it, and among those, very few enter with open eyes." Wembe frowned slightly. Then, "Why me?" The tree lowered one of its branches, slowly, with the weight of ages, toward Nyasha. "She," it said, "carries more than a garden inside her. She is a threshold, a living passage, called to open ways few can follow. And you were invited, not for who you are, but because something inside you responded long before your eyes met at the market." Wembe lowered his gaze. He listened. He received. "You may refuse," continued the tree, "but if you accept, then you move forward together. She is not meant to remain here. If she stays too long, she will become part of this place, and what must be born elsewhere will be lost." And in that moment, Wembe understood. Something shifted inside him. Until now, he had seen himself as a broken body, a patient to be healed. But that wasn't why he came. He came to change, to open himself to something more, if he chose it. This world wasn't a refuge, it was a passage. He turned away from the tree, looked for Nyasha, and walked toward her. "I've spent my life fighting fear," he said. "Fear of pain, fear of falling sick. But now I think I understand. Healing isn't about making the pain disappear. It's about finding balance." He took a deep breath. "I'm ready to go back." Nyasha looked at him. The tight string in her chest finally loosened. She nodded. No words, just understanding. They had listened, they had learned just in time. And then, for the first time since they arrived, the world of plants bowed before them. The arches opened, the vines relaxed, and a path, once invisible, revealed itself in a soft, pearlescent light. They had not stayed too long. They had stayed just long enough to hear the call. Nyasha opened her eyes. She was lying beneath the great baobab of the Garden of Life. Morning light slipped gently through the leaves in warm golden beams. A soft scent floated in the air, ginger, and maybe a trace of a dream. Leaning over her, her mother smiled, a quiet smile, as if nothing had happened, or maybe as if she knew. "Wake up, my daughter," she said. "It's time to bring the leaves to the herbalist." Nyasha sat up slowly. Her breath was calm, but her heart was beating just a little too fast. Everything around her was familiar. The plants with names she knew, the warm earth beneath her fingers, the morning songs of birds. And yet, something had shifted inside her, a trace, a scent, like the echo of something forgotten, that returns without warning. A memory of a place she had never seen, and yet had always known. She stood, picked up her basket. Her mother was already walking. Nyasha followed quietly. The village was waking. Voices hummed through the alleys, mixed with the smells of spices and ripe fruit. But Nyasha walked just slightly off. Not here, not there, somewhere between. Then, at the corner of the street, in front of the herbalist's shop, she saw him. Wembe. He was holding a box of herbs, speaking softly with the old sage. When he looked up, their eyes met. A silence, brief, full, alive. His eyes widened slightly, surprised as if he recognized her, as if he too had just woken from a dream he'd never quite left. Nyasha's heart skipped. She looked down, but a small, quiet smile played at the corner of her lips. She stepped into the shop, and everything around them carried on, as if nothing had happened, as if the world hadn't noticed. But deep within her, something had just begun, and perhaps, somewhere in him, it had too. If this story touched you, if it stirred a memory, a silence, or a truth within you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel to receive more tales inspired by the wisdom of Katiopa. Leave a breath in the comments, or a few words if your heart feels like it. Together, we'll keep growing this forest of stories from the deep woods of Katiopa.